Interestingly, Muslims also came to this realization. And just to give you an example, the great Muslim theologian Abu al-Hasan al-Ash'ari, who died in 935 of the Common Era, from the city of Basra. He and his school of thought, which became dominant in Islam, was that there is no such thing as absolute right and absolute wrong. Human beings, we can't sit and come up with some rules for absolute right and absolute wrong. Our reason can't create that. Right and wrong are determined by God. Right and wrong are determined by God. There's no notion of right or notion of wrong that exists separate from God. God makes things right and wrong by doing things or by forbidding things, by commanding things or prohibiting things. Now, why would Abu al-Hasan al-Ash'ari come up with this? This seems kind of, imagine you're going up to somebody at a dinner party and you say, there's no such thing as right and wrong. And they say, how can you say that? That's so messed up. How can you say that? Are you saying that, are you saying it's okay to go out and just beat up someone in the street? Or are you saying it's okay to go and the things like committing rape and all these things? Are you saying these are right? Or these aren't wrong? There's just no such thing as right and wrong? Why would someone come up with this conclusion? Well, in this case, it's very interesting that Muslims, the fact that Muslims by the 900s of the Common Era were spread all the way from Spain to India. And they could see on their travels, Muslim scholars could see how different local customs were. And this is actually in a movie with Antonio Banderas called The 13th Warrior. I don't know if anyone has seen this movie. It's one of the few movies with a Muslim hero. No one's seen the 13th Warrior? Okay, you should go see it. It has a Muslim hero and there are no sex scenes, so it's worth seeing if you're Muslim. Anyway, there's things in this movie and you think this is just Hollywood. Actually, it's based on, part of the movie is based on the memoirs of a Muslim traveler who was the ambassador from the Abbasid Caliph in Baghdad he was supposed to go to meet basically the Tatars on the Volga River in southern Russia. He didn't actually arrive there. He had to turn back because of weather. But on his way, he met Vikings. Vikings who were, by that time, coming down from Scandinavia through the river systems of Russia into what's now Ukraine and the Caspian Sea area. In fact, that's where we get the name Russia from the Rus, who were a Viking group who settled down there. And he describes something very interesting. He goes to a Viking funeral of a chief who's died. And they take the chief's body and they put it in a long boat, and they take it out on a river. And they get one of his slave women, and they take her into a tent with the body, 6 warriors. And the warriors all have relations with her, and while they're stabbing her, and then they strangle her to death and leave. And then they set the boat on fire, and that's it. That funeral is over. And the Muslim ambassador, since he's from Baghdad, he's a very polite person, he's shocked. He is shocked by what he sees. And he inquires from the Vikings how they could do this to this chief. How could they have burials like this? And they actually ask him, they say, actually, we don't understand why you would take a body of a loved one and put it in the ground and let worms eat it. They thought that was more barbaric than what they were doing. So you can imagine if you are a Muslim scholar and you were dealing with populations living in Central Asia and Arabia and Yemen and North Africa, you see very clearly the local custom that there's no such thing as absolute right and absolute wrong. There's nothing that humans agree on, in effect. In effect. So where does truth come from? Where does right and wrong come from? Right and wrong comes from God. Right and wrong comes from revelation. From a source that defines truth for us. Now, that presents another challenge for Muslims. How do you deal with revelation? So for Muslims, the revelation is the Quran, the Word of God, revealed to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and the Sunnah of the Prophet, the teachings of the Prophet, the precedent of the Prophet. However we understand the Sunnah, whether it's through hadiths or through consensus or through living traditions like prayer. Very few people learn how to pray by reading hadiths. Most of the time they learn to pray by watching their parents or going to the mosque and seeing other people pray. And this we can take all the way back to the time of the Prophet. So, if we've decided that people are really governed by custom, and that they can think that their custom is so true that everybody else in the world must understand that this is the right way to live, we can say that. And then we can add to that our realization based on the Viking funeral incident that in fact, that's not the case. That in fact, people can be extremely attached and believe that something is completely correct and have another person believe that that thing is absolutely repulsive beyond belief. And these two groups can view each other's customs in exactly the same way. Now, we can then say, thank God that God has sent down revelation that gives human beings rules that they all have to follow if they believe in God and they believe in the prophet. They have a source of truth that is transcendent, that comes from above.